For those of you who don't know me, and I hope there's not many in this room who don't, I'm Gerard Coyne, the Regional Secretary for Unite the Union in the West Midlands. We are fortunate this morning in that we've been joined by two special guests that haven't been part of the planned agenda, but I'm very glad that they could make it along this morning. We've got the leader and deputy leader of the Labour Party with us, Jeremy Corbyn. And of course, an old friend of Uniting the West Midlands, Tom Watson.
Thanks, Tom, and thanks for giving us a few minutes. If I could start by losing the remaining two-thirds of the audience to confess two things. I'm an Arsenal supporter and a member of Unison. Shall I go now? I was, however, once a member of the T&G Region 5 when I worked in a warehouse in Shropshire. Does that make it better? Yes! Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Very quickly, because we don't have a lot of time and you've got very important work to do today. Since I became the leader of the party, it's been a fascinating roller coaster kind of experience, but very, very exciting for all the possibilities there are for the Labour Party at the present time. Our membership is now knocking on towards 400,000 across the whole of the UK. Biggest membership certainly in my lifetime, and that shows there is a thirst for doing politics in a different way. There is a thirst for people being fully involved. There is also huge issues, there are huge issues ahead of us that we have to face. There are many, but if I just give an example, first of all, about how we do our politics and how we represent people. And the Prime Minister's question time issue is something I thought about a great deal before the leadership election result had come out about how we would do it. And I've tried this idea of crowdsourcing questions and then asking those questions on behalf of people all over the country. An amazing number of emails come in every week, between 40 and 50,000 emails come in every week, and then we do computer searches on the subjects that have come up, the numbers that have come up on each subject. They're not always the same subjects that you would think, you'd necessarily think of yourselves. So large numbers on housing, very large numbers on mental health, many, many others on all kinds of issues facing injustice. And what I'm trying to do is show to the whole country that the function of our party, the function of our MPs, the function of our leadership of this party is to speak for people in demanding answers from those in office and those in power at the present time. And we're going to continue with that kind of strategy. We're also going to obviously oppose what this government is doing. I'll give you two examples. One is on austerity and the other is on the trade union bill. Next week the government will come out with its spending review, the autumn spending statement. I can't say as I'm looking forward to it, I'm not. I'm very depressed about the possibilities that they'll come up with yet more cuts, essentially making everyone on an ordinary income, working in local government, receiving local government or health services, pay the price for the financial crisis of 2008. And that same government is, one hand, cutting inheritance tax for the 66,000 richest families in the country, cutting corporation tax by 2%, and then trying to take £4 billion off the tax credit budget, thus affecting 3 million families across the whole of Britain by around £1,300 per year from next April. We opposed that obviously all the way. We managed to find a way of defeating it in the House of Lords by a rather peculiar system that could only operate in the House of Lords. It had been explained to me 3 times before I understood what the process was, but we did mobilise on it and we did defeat them, so the ball's back in their court. So please, when we're doing the petitioning and the campaigning this weekend and all the way through to it, please join in this, because if we can push them back on taking tax credits away, which do support people on middle and low incomes in work, do help people to remain in work, do help them to support their children, that surely is something that we introduced as a Labour government, something we should be proud of, and we're not going to let them take it away any more than we're going to let them destroy the whole welfare state within our society. So we are doing our very, very best on that one. But it's also challenging their economic narrative. We want an investing economy, we want a growing economy, we want an economy that invests in infrastructure, invests in manufacturing industry as the basis of the wealth of this country. What are they doing? Walking by on the other side while the steel industry free falls into crisis, while underpriced Chinese steel is dumped on our markets in Britain, thus causing the closure of Redcar, damage to Scunthorpe and many, many other plants around the country. So next week I'm holding a steel summit of steel industry MPs, the Save Our Steel campaign, obviously all the unions involved in that, and we will continue that campaign to try to defend that, and at the same time put forward positive ideas of what we want to achieve. And so it's part of the policy making I want to see, that in opposition we oppose what they're doing, but we then go out and develop the policies we want as an alternative. That means more democracy in our party, more democracy in our unions, more policy making from the grassroots. Every one of us has got good ideas. Every one of us is an expert on something or other. That should be part of our policy making. Don't send it away to experts somewhere else. Do it ourselves. We're all experts in our own way. Democratise and open up. That's what our movement and our party was founded to achieve. That moves me on, this final point, because you've not much time, to the trade union bill. This trade union bill is one of yet another series of Tory attacks on unions. I remember marching through Birmingham opposing the 1971 trade union bill that was put forward, and all the other pieces of legislation that were put forward by successive Tory governments, all designed to make it harder to represent people at work, all designed to make it harder to be a trade union activist, all designed to try and remove or destroy the political voice of trade unions. Why is it trade unions are not allowed to make their voice heard in the run-up to a general election, yet any hedge fund manager, finance expert, whatever else, is quite free to comment on anything to do with our policies? In a democracy, surely the 6 million people who are members of trade unions ought to be able to freely express their voice in exactly the same way anybody else does. So in opposing this trade union bill for all that it does about organisation at the workplace and the political voice of unions, we need to put forward a positive agenda. And Tom said what is very good. We've asked Ian Lavery, a former mine worker, president of the National Union of Mine Workers before he became an MP, to head up a working group on developing positive rights at work. Positive rights to representation, positive rights to defend what was a great Labour government initiative, the Health, Safety and Welfare at Work Act in the 1970s, but also look at other areas like equality, like health and safety, like representation, because it's essentially the progressive voice of trade unions that have brought about so much that's good in our society. Brought about health and safety legislation, brought about equal pay legislation, helped to bring about anti-racist legislation, and helped to bring about the overall things like the Disability Discrimination Act and all the other acts that we got through in the last Parliament. So, we oppose, yes, we defend, yes, but above all, we unlock the potential of everybody to take part in the kind of society we want to create, where we don't ignore those people that have had misfortune in their lives and suffering mental health conditions. We don't ignore people that are homeless because of the lack of housing. Instead, we look to a society that does have an expanding, growing economy, that does have a proper welfare system that supports people through destitution, but above all, has a housing policy that ensures not just this generation are properly housed, but the next generation that comes after that. The Tory policy is to sell off council housing, sell off housing association properties, and say if you can afford to buy a place, fine. If you can't, tough. You've got to stay living with your parents till your 40s or 50s and hope you get into their house when they die. Well, sorry, we can do better and do differently. That's what we as a party are about. We were founded by the trade unions and by visionary socialists. We are strong because of that union connection. I've been a trade unionist all my life, and I'll be a trade unionist till the day I die, because I believe in the power of organised labour and organised workers to achieve great change within our society. So I'm not ashamed in any way. I'm very proud of the link between the unions and the Labour Party. I want that link to work, both for the unions and the party, so that the party benefits from the ideas and inspiration of union members, and the union members benefit by the legislative programme that we want to bring in when we form a government in 2020. I know it seems a long way off, but let's win all those elections next May as a springboard towards further growth of our party, further openness in politics and openness in ideas that takes us through to a real change in 2020. Thank you very much for inviting me here today.